Thank you for joining us for our midweek Bible study. I hope that you are experiencing a wonderful season in life as the temperature begins to promise fall and lead us forward to Christmas. We are almost to the wrap-up point for the Gospel of Mark. We've got a couple of more messages. We got tonight and Sunday, and then next Wednesday night. I think that concludes the journey through the Gospel of Mark, and we will have covered every verse in Mark's Gospel in 2023, and so that's wonderful. I don't know if you realize, but the story of Cinderella has been told and retold. It has been refashioned and reformed in a multitude of different ways, and it has captured the hearts and the attention of little children, like my granddaughter Nora. She loves the idea of becoming a princess, and I think that the story of Cinderella is really a story that captures our heart because it promises someone who is in less than ideal circumstances experiencing a turnaround in their life so that now they have a life that is full and complete. Now, again, you look at the story of Cinderella and you know that once upon a time tells a myth. But in Mark chapter 10, verses 46 through 52, we hear the story of someone who was in less than ideal circumstances that Jesus encountered, that Jesus healed, and it led him to a brand new way of life. It's through this story of a man named Bartimaeus that we discover not only what Jesus has done for us, but then how we must respond in light of what Jesus has done for us. Mark 10, beginning in verse 46, let me read the passage. Now they came to Jericho. Remember, Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem. Jericho is about 17 miles south of Jerusalem, and it is going up to Jerusalem, and the normal path is going through Jericho. They came to Jericho, and as he went out of Jericho with his disciples, a great multitude, blind Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, sat by the road begging. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Then many warned him or rebuked him to be quiet, but he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. So Jesus stood still and commanded Bartimaeus to be called. And the crowd who had just previously rebuked him, the crowd called the blind man, saying to him, be of good cheer, get up, he's calling you. And Bartimaeus, throwing aside his garment, rose and came to Jesus. Jesus answered and said to Bartimaeus, what do you want me to do for you? And the blind man said to Jesus, Rabboni, that I may receive my sight. And Jesus said to him, go your way, your faith has made you well. And immediately he received his sight, last phrase, and followed Jesus on the road. This is the final healing story in Mark's gospel. It serves as a crescendo of what discipleship is all about. It's filled with warmth, and it's filled with deep feeling, because this is a healing narrative where we actually know the name of the man who needs help. Now, we look at this story, and what captures my attention is the cry of Bartimaeus, have mercy. Have mercy on me. Eleison me is the Greek. Have mercy on me. Now, this is a man who understood that he needed help from God, and he looked to Jesus for help. Have mercy. I think that there was a time in your life, as there was in mine, where we cried out to Jesus, have mercy on me, O Jesus. I know that I need help. I know that I'm in a fix. I know that I can't help myself. I know that I'm blind. I know that I can't see where I need to go or what I need to do. Have mercy on me. And Jesus responds to the cry for mercy. And look at this passage, let's kind of break it apart. A large group of people were walking with Jesus on the way to Jerusalem. Some of them were on their way to celebrate the Passover. This was a main thoroughfare from the southern part of Judea into Jerusalem. And so it was crowded, and it was the season of Passover festival. So there were faithful and pious pilgrims on their way to Jerusalem. So some of them were on their way to celebrate the Passover. Some of them were on their way because Jesus was on his way, and they were following him. It's the picture of the multitude that's attracted to Jesus, wanting to be near him, and they were following him on the way. So there was a great crowd that was following Jesus. As they're walking through Jericho, on the outskirts, there's a man named Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus is blind, and he's sitting by the road. You look in verse 46, it says, the very last phrase, he sat by the road begging. He wasn't on the main thoroughfare. He wasn't following Jesus. He was just sitting there trying to make his livelihood by begging for money. And he was by the road because that's a strategic location. Again, a main thoroughfare. And so here is a blind beggar asking for alms. He's asking for money so that he can have bread for his table. It's a main thoroughfare, and merchants, the prosperous, would walk through Jericho on their way to do trade in Jerusalem, or they would walk from Jerusalem back home through Jericho, having done the deals that they needed to do. The prosperous were on that way, the merchants were on that way, but also the pious. Because it was Passover season, the pilgrims on their way to Jerusalem for Passover would perhaps be more inclined to help a blind man. And so Bartimaeus was in the right place to beg for help. But then he hears that Jesus is coming. Everything changes for him. He's no longer saying alms for the poor, or I'm blind, can you help me? Give me a little help. I don't have any way to help myself. He's not asking for bread for his table. He's asking for healing because it's Jesus. And Jesus changed his cry. No longer was it, will you give me food? Now it was, have mercy on me. And not only have mercy, but he called out to Jesus with the title, Son of David. He recognized that Jesus was the promised king sent by God to set life right. He had, even though he had lost his eyesight, he had insight that many around him didn't have. This is the one. This is Jesus, and he can help me. He called out in the language of the Psalms, asking for mercy for God's help. Oh, help me, the psalmist cried. Have mercy upon me, for I am weak and needy, the psalmist cried. The crowd, this gathering around Jesus, they heard the cry, and they told Bartimaeus to be quiet. They thought that Jesus had better things to do than to deal with a beggar. Maybe they wanted to avoid the press of an exuberant crowd. But even in the face of the crowd's rebuke, Bartimaeus, awakened to faith, cried out even more, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. He wouldn't be quieted. He wouldn't be commanded or rebuked into silence. He needed help. He saw Jesus was the help that he needed. Oh, that you and I, even as followers of Jesus, who have been rescued by God's grace through faith in him, oh, that we would have that kind of persistence, that faith-filled, dogged determination. Jesus, help me. I'm not going to be hindered. I'm not going to be quieted. I'm going to be exuberant. I'm going to be loud. I'm going to be persistent. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stood still. In verse 47, verse 48, verse 49, Jesus stood still. He stopped. Even though he's on his way to Jerusalem, even though he's walking into a hornet's nest of trouble, even though, as he's already told us, he's on his way to die, he hears the cry of Bartimaeus and he stops. He tells the crowd, tell him to come here. And a beautiful picture that Jesus portrays here, that when he hears the cry of faith, he stops to help. When the crowd understood the heart of Jesus for the man who needed his help, they shifted from rebuking to encouraging. They shifted from being a hindrance to Bartimaeus to be an encourager. Be of good cheer. He's calling you. Get up. The ones who had rebuked him for crying for help now encouraged him. Bartimaeus throws off his cloak in excitement and he runs to where Jesus is. And Jesus asks him, what do you want me to do? And Jesus hears the response of faith. See, Bartimaeus could have asked, well, can you give me money? Bartimaeus could have asked, can you help me with my rent? Bartimaeus could have asked, I'm all alone in the world. Can you set me up for with family or friends? He could have asked all kinds of different things, but faith in Jesus, the Son of David, the King who had come to set all things right, faith had been sparked in his heart by God's grace. And he said, Rabboni, that I might see. He believed Jesus could do that very thing to help him. The mercy that he needed, he believed Jesus could provide. Again, oh, that we would have that kind of faith in everyday life, that Jesus can and that Jesus will. Jesus, will you help me? Jesus, have mercy on me. And Jesus responds to the faith of Bartimaeus with rescue. He says, your faith has rescued you. Your faith has made you well. He says, your faith has changed everything. That faith had a particular object, Jesus, the Son of David. That faith had a particular request, that I might be made whole. And Jesus responded to that particular faith with rescue. That phrase, your faith has made you well, in the New King James Version, made you well is sozo. It's saved you. It's salvation. And that word sozo can be interpreted in physical terms. He has given you eyesight. But it can also be interpreted as spiritual in nature. He's healed you from the sin sickness of your soul. And I believe, as do many, that Jesus intended both. The text itself gives us indicators that Bartimaeus was not merely given his eyesight saved physically, but he was also given a call to discipleship, a new life by following after Jesus, a new heart, not just physical salvation, but spiritual salvation. He placed his faith in Jesus, and Jesus saved him. And the way we know or believe that Bartimaeus now had been saved, both physically and spiritually, is his next action. He got up, and he was no longer an outsider sitting by the road begging. Now he was an insider. He was one who was following after Jesus. So what do we learn from this story of Bartimaeus? First, we go from begging to following. Bartimaeus had confidence and trust that Jesus would help him. And as beggars of mercy, we cried out to Jesus for help, and he rescued us, and he made us whole, and he gave us new life. And he gives us not only physical well-being, but spiritual well-being. No, we're no longer sitting on the side of the road begging. Now we're on the road following Jesus. We move from begging to following when we have received God's mercy. Second, we move from hindering to encouraging. As followers of Jesus, we understand the heart of Jesus for men and women around us, just like Bartimaeus. They need help. They're crying out for mercy. And it's our job not to quiet them, but to encourage them to get to Jesus. Genuine faith has more than simply attaching the name of Jesus across our shirt. Genuine faith is more than just an empty claim. Genuine faith does something. If we are followers of Jesus, we will follow after him. And that means we will help the ones who need God's mercy. Just as Jesus stopped to serve a blind beggar, we must give ourselves to serve. Bartimaeus was a living picture of the service that Christ demanded. No longer begging, but following. No longer following, no longer a hindrance, but now an encouragement. Today, I want to encourage you to have mercy, just as Jesus had mercy. Part of following Jesus means that we adopt his heart for those who are on the side of the road begging for mercy. That we stop and we're no longer a hindrance, but we're a help. We encourage them. Here, let me get you to Jesus. Be of good cheer. Jesus is calling you. Jesus knows your name. He wants to help. Let me help you get to him. Friends, today, are you encouraging those who are on the side of the road needing help? I beg you, by the mercies of God, that you join me in encouraging. After all, this is what it means to follow Jesus. We are like Cinderella, enslaved to sin, but Jesus comes to give us a new life. And we can live happily ever after as we follow after Jesus and help others get to Jesus. Now may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, that you may abound in hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. God bless you. Good night.